Micro-empirics of collective action, the case of business improvement districts by Leah Brooks, William Strain, published in 2011 by the Journal of Public Economics. First of all, I will give you the main key points of the article, and then we will go through what business improvement districts are in practice, and then we will see how the theoretical findings the authors provide are matching with the empirical results. Well, the main key points, the analysis of the paper goes through three main key points. First of all, the benefits of business improvement districts are uneven and not constant. This is clear by the voting patterns and the price-value change of properties which are involved in the business improvement districts. Then, secondly, the business improvement districts do not result in operator improvement. In fact, if they result in a welfare improvement from voting patterns and the lack of unanimous agreement on BAD formation tells us that they are not operator improvement. Last, the viability of business improvement district is strictly related to the presence of anchor participants, namely those participants who are willing to take action and bear the fixed cost of business improvement districts formation. But just take a step back, and if you don't mind, I will address business improvement districts as the BID. Let's take a step back and see what business BID are in practice. As the paper suggests, a business improvement district is formed when a majority of commercial property owners vote in favor to a package of taxes and expenditures for public goods, in addition to the ones supplemented by the public sector. For example, business improvement districts includes all those activities which are whose aim is to ameliorate the environment where businesses operate. And in particular, we can include in those activities the posting signs, or, for example, improving lighting in a neighborhood, or hiring additional security guards. Concerning the existing literature, honestly, I just mentioned the ones that on which that helped developing this paper, and that analyzes mainly the determinants and consequences of business improvement districts on society. From an institutional point of view, the business improvement districts is the proof of what we know as the collective action process, namely the process by which a subset of the population take actions to gain a common purpose. And we will not deeply analyze the process, but keep in mind that the process for BAD formation starts with a proposal for the BAD, going on with a management plan that fixes the costs, the taxes needed, and the duration and the borders for the BAD. And then there is the voting. If the majority of the subset of in this case, commercial property owners, vote in favor, the BID is formed, and then the fiscal implication is that an additional tax is added to the property tax bills of members, which will be included in the business improvement district. Well, I want to stress the fact that the paper conducts a twofold analysis, an empirical and a theoretical analysis, and an empirical one. For time issues, I will give you the main findings and the limits of theoretical findings, while I would prefer to deeply analyze the empirical results. From a theoretical point of view, the paper finds out that the level of provision under BAD is greater with respect to the case where you cannot find business improvement districts. But so it is a welfare improvement. However, this additional provision has some limits, especially in terms of membership and in terms of property characteristics. Talking about membership, members in particular, we find that marginal members of the business improvement districts, namely those members that are at the borders of the business improvement districts, are made worse off by the BID formation. And the reason is strictly mathematical, but briefly, the point is that the payoff for marginal members when the BID forms could be simultaneously equal to a higher and a lower level of provision if the BID do not form. And the author suggests that since this is not possible, this bifurcation leads to the fact that marginal members are made worse off. And secondly, the point for the second limit, the business improvement districts needs contiguity in order to form and to work efficiently. So it's very likely that some members will be forced to join the BID even if they are voting against the BID formation. Those members will be made worse off in terms of payoff if the BID is formed. And finally, talking about properties, property characteristics, each member derives benefits according to the average benefits of the property. In particular, benefits increase with higher level of ownership. This means that larger owners are gaining more in terms of payoff for the BID formation, and in particular that these larger owners tend to be the anchor participants, namely the proponents of the business improvement districts. Then we will see how the empirical results actually are consistent with those limits we found in the theoretical approach. The dataset that the empirical analysis uses individual data for 8 BIDs in Los Angeles, California. And in particular, you can see that datasets are gathered by voting behavior, property characteristics, and ownerships. The aggregate results matches with one of our main key points, namely that we cannot consider BID as a Pareto improvement. In fact, results say that the average passage rate for BID votation is only 73%. This means there is no universal consensus on business improvement districts formation. Moving over, we can see empirical results at individual level. And we will see them by an organizational point of view, by voting behavior and property value effects of BID. In the first case, from an organizational point of view, we found out that proponents have larger property values. In fact, the authors distinguished by proponent types and non-proponent types among agents, and they compare them by 4 different variables which explain property characteristics. In particular, the first and the second column that I highlighted are expressing BID assessment and property assessed values. We can see that proponent types have all have larger values for all variables, and especially the 2 I highlighted with respect to non-proponents. This means that larger owners that also in the empirical results accept the fact that larger owners are the ones proponing the BID. Then the voting behavior is modeled by the authors through a regression that uses ordinary square that regresses the voting behavior, yes, by assessment, so property characteristics, size and quality of BID, which is the variable the variable Q, and a fixed effect BID due to the heterogeneity of the sample. The most significant finding is that the higher assessment voters are the one that tends to support more the BID formation. And in fact, we can see that from the regression table, that column 8, that an increase in the owner's shares of assessment of 3 percentage points, that the coefficient is very high, and that an increase in the owner's shares of assessment of 3 percentage points leads to a 9% increase in the probability that the voters would vote for the BID formation. Another interesting finding is that anchor tenants are important supporters of the BAT that forms. And the authors find this by a comparison between BATs and almost BAT, namely those BATs for which there was a votation but did not pass. And in particular, they use a concentration index, the Erfindal index, which is basically the ratio between the owner's share of BAT and the total BAT. And we found out that business improvement districts are always more concentrated than the almost BAT. And since the almost BAT are the one that did not form, we can highlight a relationship between concentration and BAT formation. And finally, both yes and no voters are found at the center and at the edge of the business improvement district. This means that there are some members that are forced to join the BAT, and that will be worse off. Finally, last set of results regards property value effects. Property value effects are the effect on properties after the BAT is formed. The authors analyze these aspects with two types of regression. The first one regresses the post-BAT property value and regresses the real price on attributes of the BAT and attributes interacted with the post-BAT dummy variable, which is this after BAT. And the sample here is divided per quartile in order to allow a comparison between different kinds and types of properties. So we can see from the table that that actually largest quartile, we are from lowest quartile to largest quartile. We can see that largest quartiles are the ones that are gaining more in terms of property value changes. And then a 30-35% increase in the price for Q3 and Q4. The second regression tells us the price value change according to voting behavior. Namely, there is a clear relationship between price and voting behavior, since yes voters usually experience an additional $204,000 worth of appreciation when the BID is formed, and as an overall, a 65% more in the commercial property values, as we can see from table 8, here the highlighted values I mentioned already. Concluding, what I want to stress is that actually theory and empirical results, agrees on what are our main key points. Recalling the unevenness of BIT's benefit, and the point is that benefits of BAT are uneven from a membership point of view and from property characteristics. Secondly, the BAT are not quality improvements. Yes, they provide an additional level of public provision, but it is not a quality improvement in terms of membership and voting patterns. And then, yes, we highlighted the importance of anchor participants. And just a reflection, the point is that larger owners, business improvement district is the case where larger owners are the ones gaining more benefits, whereas small businesses usually alternate small welfare improvement with welfare decrease. And this is just my reflection, and I pointed out some links that you can use if you are interested in the topic to see what actually business improvement districts are in practice. And this is the end of the presentation.
Any questions, anyone?
Okay.
Thank you.